So we've got these secondary improvements in cardiovascular disease, et cetera, that are happening in the studies of the diabetics. They looked at non-diabetics. They put them on GLP-1 agonists that had heart failure, and there was improvement. With fast and furious weight loss comes a lot of problems, one of them being muscle loss. We're optimizing optimal human performance. We're getting people in a really awesome metabolic state so that they can age well. I'm really interested in its impact on neuroinflammation, cognition, and downstream pain. Like, that's really where my interest cued. When I put that into the Google and I saw the studies that came up, I was like, wait, what? Why is nobody talking about this? So yes, we've got these secondary improvements in cardiovascular disease, et cetera, but that are happening in the studies of the diabetics. These are the STEP trials, they're called. There's a series of studies called the STEP studies, the STEP trials, and they just completed one on heart failure. Get this, you guys, heart failure. They looked at non-diabetics. They put them on GLP-1 agonists that had heart failure, and there was improvement. There was improvement in the diabetics. There was improvement in the non-diabetics. I mean, name me a drug that can do that. It's reversing heart failure. This is phenomenal to me. This is just absolutely phenomenal to me. And the fact that it's being so vilified, that anytime I see a large group of people go against something, I'm like, what is up? Like, who is feeding them this? And so that's why I've been really confused with the functional medicine community. But to their defense, let's get into that. These folks are being generally put on high doses, or low doses, titrated up to high doses. Not every doctor is doing this. There's a lot of astute doctors out there doing this, right? There's a lot of weight loss doctors who've been using this for a long time on a lot of patients very safely, and they never get into these higher doses. But the standard, if you look these up and you look up dosing, is to get up to, with semaglutide, it's to go from 0.25 milligrams up to 2.5 milligrams. So we've got people way up there in the 2.5 milligrams. They're left on it forever. They're not told to strength train. They're not told to change their diet. They're not taught how to eat. They're not taught anything. They just experience significant weight loss. With fast and furious weight loss comes a lot of problems. One of them being muscle loss. So you guys have all heard about the muscle loss concern, right? And I know Dr. Peter Attia was all over it. And after he put out whatever he put out, everybody was like, well, Dr. Attia said, you guys, anybody who knows anything, I've helped a lot of patients lose weight, And we've used HCG, we've used all kinds of different things. We've used a lot of mostly natural. But when somebody loses weight aggressively and quickly, they tend to lose about 25 to 30% of their lean muscle mass. Guess what the percentage is on semaglutide? 25 to 30%. So it's the same. It is the side effect of a severely calorically reduced diet. That's it. It's not the semaglutide. It's not driving muscle loss. Actually, there are mechanisms in these GLP-1 agonists that drive muscle protein synthesis. So you're being lied to about that, and everybody's jumping all over it. And it's cracking me up because I'm like, do any of you know anything about weight loss? Because if you look at any weight loss studies, the standard is to lose 25 to 30% of your muscle mass if you're not actively pursuing strength training. So these folks should all be on a strength training regimen. They should all be on a high protein diet, right? Macros on protein should be hit every day. Strength training 3 times a week at least. The bare minimum. That's how these patients should be being managed. But we, of course, know that's not how they're being managed. They're just being given the drug. They're losing the weight. They're like, look how skinny I am. Well, what happens with that is they lose sometimes more muscle mass than they do fat. So their body weight goes down significantly, but it's about 50-50 at that point for several of them. And now when they regain the fat back because they went off the peptide and they don't have any lifestyle improvements in place, they don't have any lifestyle, strategies, they don't have any insulin resistant, none of it's been talked about. None of it's understood. They're not living a metabolically sound life. They're not living a life conducive to good metabolic health. And then they go off the peptide and they gain the weight back. Well, now they're under muscled. They've lost a ton of muscle and they gain back all this weight, and most of it's fat. So now they're fatter than they started when it comes to body composition percentages, right? Their percentage, if they started as 50% fat and 50% muscle, and then, bones, soft tissue, and then they took the peptide and they whittled away and they did nothing. This is the same with any caloric restriction diet. I've seen this with keto. I've seen this so many times with keto, actually. You guys, I've seen people go on extreme keto diets and come into my office and they just look like a bag of bones. They just look like a saggy, sad, skinny person, and they're frail and they never strength trained during the whole keto process, right? They just had extreme weight loss with keto. So this goes for any extreme weight loss where strength training is not emphasized and muscle synthesis is not being emphasized. So at least the keto folks were eating a high protein diet, so they had something going for them. But you get my drift? All this hype, all this vilification is just because it's not being done right. It's not the GLP-1 agonists. So we got to get that out of our heads. The mechanisms with how it induces muscle protein synthesis is not entirely understood, or at least I didn't understand it entirely. And I'm still looking into that, but it's there. I've read it. I've seen it. We are being misled on that one. So let that go. If you're not strength training and you're losing weight, you're doing it wrong. That's why I tell you guys strength training is non-negotiable. Absolutely non-negotiable, right? 100% non-negotiable. If you're not lifting weights 3 times a week, you're not doing it right. That's just for maintenance. That's just for longevity. That's just for aging well. That's just for having a good metabolic health, right? We have to be strength training regularly. We have to be building muscle. I've told you again and again my stance on protein. I prefer animal protein. I actually prefer red meat. I think it's very nutritiously dense. It's very easy to hit your macros with red meat. So I'm a big fan. You'll get a very comprehensive profile of nutrients and minerals when you eat red meat. So hitting your macros is key. You can add in eggs. You can add in Greek yogurt. You can add in what, I don't care. I don't care what people want to eat. That's fine. Whatever protein they choose, whether it's chicken or turkey, if you want to try to do it from a vegetarian or vegan standpoint, have at it. Good luck. That's going to be harder. But hey, if you can induce muscle protein synthesis with a protein heavy diet or protein forward diet, right? At least 30 milligrams a meal is the minimum, in my opinion. More for men, more if you're strength training a lot, right? And then making sure that you are strength training. I don't see why anybody would be losing significant muscle mass. And in fact, I talked to my strength and conditioning coach who I've worked with for years, and he has 3 clients who are on it, all 3 very different. So one is a woman in her 70s, and she was significantly overweight. One is a woman in her, I think also 60s or 70s, who was moderately overweight. So maybe, I think the first one was more like 80, 90 pounds overweight. The second gal was like 40, 50 pounds overweight. And then he's got a gal a little bit younger than me, kind of same body composition. She's got a little bit in her midsection like I do, and she's not quite thrilled about it. So she was using it predominantly for just to lose a few pounds. And I'll say to that, before I tell you the results, I'll say to that, there's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with that. That's not a vanity issue. That's an early sign of insulin resistance. This gut that I have that I can't seem to get off is an early sign of insulin resistance. Now, the insulin resistance isn't showing up on labs yet. It's not showing up on my continuous glucose monitor, but it's there. It's telling that there is adipose depositing itself in my midsection. That is telling me that I am headed down a insulin resistant pathway, right? So that belly fat is so clearly indicative of insulin resistance, you guys. And this is why I always say, if you can, lose your gut. It's not a judgment call on people. I'm not trying to shame anybody or make anyone feel bad. When you have a gut, especially if it's visceral fat, you are looking at trouble. And that is a very clear indicator and early sign of what's to come, which is insulin resistance. So I built this way, and this is how my family is. And everybody turns into a round little apple as they age in my family. And I'm fighting it tooth and nail, but lo and behold, it's still, doing a little job on me. So I see no reason why somebody, even in that scenario, shouldn't be using these. I think they could use a very low dose and have incredible success. And I've talked to several doctors who are practicing this way, where they're using it. Folks think it's vanity prescribing, but it's not. We're optimizing optimal human performance. We're getting people in a really awesome metabolic state so that they can age well and they don't have degenerative joint disease and they don't have all these other things that come along with it. All right. So hopefully that explains the bulk of it. And so I want to get to some of your questions here, because a lot of you guys have been asking me, and I think I've answered a lot of them, but I want to just be clear. And I am probably going to do a part 2 because there's a lot to unpack here. I want to get into some of the deeper science with it so that this is just a quick overview, right? Somebody said, is it just a crutch? Absolutely not. Hopefully I've clarified that. We are trying to improve metabolic health. And we have got, in my opinion, we've got to get the fat off. We have multiple studies showing that the leaner you are, the longer you live. We have multiple studies showing that the more adiposity you have, the more inflamed you are, period. So it is my firm stance. I'm with the former. The leaner someone is, the better their overall health, the longer they're probably going to live, according to the data. So if insulin resistance is the number one cause of age-related illness in this country, and obesity is the biggest driving force of insulin resistance, then why are we not giving folks these peptides early? And why are we not doing it with a comprehensive lifestyle treatment plan? That's what I'm getting at. It's being done wrong in the allopathic community. I totally understand why people think it's a crutch. I totally understand why it's being vilified in that capacity. But the folks taking it don't think it's a horrible thing. The folks taking it, I've talked to multiple people who were severely overweight who have lost it with GLP-1 agonists, and all of them said the same thing. This is a miracle drug. One of the things that it does is it removes the hedonic urge to eat. That compulsive urge you get to eat. You know, it creeps up on me too. I'm usually really good with controlling my appetite, but there's times when, you know, you're sitting there, it's 9 o'clock at night and you start thinking about something you want to eat, and then you start to ruminate on it, right? And so that goes away. It completely goes away with these peptides, which I think is just miraculous, because that's what's driving people to eat the wrong things. Right. So if we can give them control back of their appetite, I believe if they're educated, I believe in human beings and I believe they're intelligent. And if we give them the right education and access to the right foods, which I know is easier said than done, they'll make the right choices. But getting adipose cells to shrink on a human being is probably one of the best gifts you can give them when it comes to their overall health and longevity of all their other organ systems, their brain. I mean, the larger your waist, the smaller the gray matter in your brain. For every inch on your waist that you accumulate, your brain shrinks. So we're dealing with this low-grade apathy, this low-grade dementia that's not even being acknowledged because folks are walking around as they are, right? In America. I mean, just go out, just go to the mall. I guess it depends on where you live, but where I live in Oregon, pretty much all over Oregon, it doesn't matter where you go. People are really struggling with their weight, and it's causing all kinds of problems for them downstream, especially the young folks. I feel horrific for young children. And I'm not saying put kids on this and leave them on it and put them on it for the rest of their life. Let's teach them how to eat well. Let's teach them how to hit their protein macros. Let's teach them how to move. Let's teach them how to lift weights, right? I know this is a big pipe dream, but I'm just saying that's why people are calling it a crutch, is because doctors are putting folks on it and sort of leaving them to do to their own devices. And they are ending up just skinnier versions of a hot mess of health. That's not the answer, right? So in that case, yes, it's a crutch, but shoot, let's give people a leg up where we can, right? Okay, so let's get to some of the questions besides, is it a crutch? Is it a magic bullet? No, I hopefully have just explained that. I don't think this will work well without being fully optimized. And so that's the other group of people I said earlier. It's two groups of people here. So we've got the folks like my dad. My dad could really use this drug. My dad is morbidly obese. He's diabetic. I mean, shoot, he's in bad shape, right? And he's in so much pain and he's so heavy, he can't even walk down the street. He can't even get down the driveway. So we can't get him exercising. It's just, we can't get him exercising. If he could drop 30 or 40 pounds, I don't even care if he does it without lifting weights. I just want it off of him so he can get moving, and we can give him a leg up so he can get moving again. Because I know once the pain is resided or it's less, and I know that once it's not literally carrying the weight of the world around on your body, he can start moving again. And this is one of the things I've done with many patients. I've helped patients that were 400 pounds, and we had to get the first 100 off before we could ever get them moving, because you just can't put that kind of load on those joints. These are joints that are not well trained. These are joints that are not well conditioned. And then we end up, people go out and pound on them. It's not great. So yeah, mild walking, getting in a pool if that's available. But a lot of people don't want to get in a pool when they weigh 200, 300, 400 pounds, right? So if we can give them a leg up and get some of the poundage off, literally, and then we can get them moving. right? And then we can start implementing some of these lifestyle strategies. I'm going to be talking about a very controversial topic as of late, all over social media, all over mainstream media, and that is all about Wegovy, Ozempic, Mounjaro, also known as semaglutide or tirzepatide. These are all GLP-1 agonists, and they are being used for type 2 diabetes and weight loss. And we are going to